bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing you just for you. It's May 23rd here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and you're watching News Generation. Joining us today is Cheska Dainha.
Happy Thursday, everyone!
Happy Thursday! And Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. Now, like always, we're going to start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending online over the past 24 hours. Experts suggest that climate change might have caused the severe turbulence encountered by the Singapore Airlines flight from London to Singapore, which resulted in one passenger's death and injuries to 71 others on Tuesday. Atmospheric scientists explained that the turbulence experienced by the flight was likely due to either clear air turbulence or thunderstorms. Now, clear air turbulence occurs when there is a change in wind direction around the jet stream, a fast-flowing river of air typically found at altitudes between 30,000 and 60,000 feet. Warmer air from increased greenhouse gas emissions is thought to alter wind speeds in the jet streams. Now, moving on back here in the country, new data shows that almost half of social media users in Korea are on Instagram, making it the most popular platform in the country. According to the Korea Information Society Development Institute on Wednesday, 48.6% of surveyed social media users reported using Instagram, up 17.1 percentage points from the previous year. The increase is attributed to the rise of short-form content. Now, breaking it down by demographic, Instagram is the most used platform among Generation X, Millennials, and Generation Z, while Naver is the most popular among baby boomers. The report surveyed over 9,700 people, ranging from teenagers to those in their 60s. Now, finally, with the Korean government working hard to tackle the country's low birth rate, more local governments are organizing matchmaking events to help single men and women find potential partners. Cities like Jinju, Gumi, and Seongnam have hosted blind dating events, with some cities even receiving more than 1,000 applications. Now, these efforts are praised as unique welfare policies because they help people meet verified individuals and engage in activities that can naturally lead to romantic relationships. However, some actually argue that these initiatives miss the mark. They believe that to truly address the shrinking population issue, the focus should be on reducing the financial burdens of marriage and child rearing, such as providing more childcare options and supporting parents' career breaks. So, divided opinion on these government-led matchmaking events. So, here in the studio, what do you think about these events, these blind dates, Walter?
Well, I think, and I agree with a certain area of this, which is I think that they're scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to trying to increase the birth rate. I don't believe that this is the right solution. As a father myself, it wasn't that I had trouble finding someone. It was the thought of, can I afford to raise a baby? So I don't think there is a massive problem with people finding mates to have, marriage and have a baby with. It's the financial burden that's a bigger part of the situation. So, but saying that, I don't see any harm in doing these events. I think they're very fun. You can meet people, and yes, there's a possibility of meeting the person you marry and maybe one day have a kid. But to rely on these as a increase in birth rate, not birth weight, I don't think this will help at all, in my opinion.
Right, economic factors are actually a big factor when young parents decide on whether to have a child or not. We actually talked about this in our previous episode yesterday, but regarding this government-led blind test, there are actually some people who are reacting positively and actually agreeing on what kind of effect that this could have, right?
Yeah. So when I first read the newsfeed that you sent me, I thought this is actually super interesting.
Yeah, me too.
So as always, I'm going to play the devil's advocate to Walter and actually say I actually think it could work.
Really?
But not sure about the actual birth rate itself, which I will get into. But from what I hear from my friends who work in one company, it can be extremely difficult to actually meet people.
I agree. Home office, home office.
See, right here. So it's very difficult to diversify your relationships or interactions with people. So when there is a verified, like city council run meet and greet or speed dating, people might actually find it more comfortable or more secure enough to go out and actually meet people. Because nowadays, some of my friends in Korea, they use dating apps and sometimes they get caught in a very...
sometimes they're dangerous.
It is dangerous, it's unverified and you don't know who you're actually going to meet. As for the birth rate itself, as we discussed extensively here on News Generation, I think the issue goes a far deeper than just whether you have a partner or not, financial, social, economic, and also very cultural. So I do think it is very amusing, and I kind of want to see how it pans out.
Right. So a very interesting event that we shed light on today, and that was our news feed for this Thursday. So shifting gears, we're going to move on to our main discussion of the day. We had several national holidays in May, so I think some of our viewers living in Korea would have enjoyed a short vacation. Now, in recent years, we've noticed a new travel trend in Korea. Instead of brief trips that last only for a few days or a week, some are opting to live in a new environment for a month or even longer. Let's take a look at the screen. Have you ever thought about living at your travel destination for a while rather than just staying there briefly as a traveler? If so, you're not alone. More people in Korea are embracing this travel trend called living 1 month. According to one domestic travel platform, the number of users booking stays for 1 week or 1 month during the first quarter of this year surged by 154% compared to the same period last year. Is this also a trend among our generation? And if so, why? Right, so this new long-term travel trend we're seeing in Korea is often called 한달살기, which translates to 1 month living. Now, Chesko, the idea of traveling for a long period of time is not new. We've seen people traveling for months or some even for years. So how is this 1 month living different from the long-term traveling that we're used to?
Yeah, as you quite accurately mentioned, this is something very interesting that has been trending in our generation. So it is literally living in a foreign city, and by foreign, I mean somewhere you have never been before. So it could even be within your own country for a month, much like the local resident. So it's different in that you're not just visiting and then touring and then exiting the city or the country. And during this 1 month of your stay, by the way, which can be longer than 1 month.
It doesn't have to be like 30 days.
Exactly, not like exactly 30 days and you get out. It could be 28, 2 weeks.
Right.
But this long-term stay of living like the local resident hasn't been around as much. And prior to this trend among MZs, the 1 month living was actually only made possible as a retirement plan. When you actually have the financial capability.
Right, when you have the time, money.
Exactly, time, money, right? Or, some people who just could afford to travel.
Right.
So this is a really recent trend, and this type of quote-unquote living condition or living style has become extremely popular among MZers.
So you mentioned how this has become popular among MZers. So how much has our generation actually hopped onto this trend?
Yeah, I was also curious too. So let's take a look at the screen to see some figures that actually support this trend. So according to Statistics Korea, which surveyed, the Jeju Island is a very popular spot for this 1 month long stay, with annually about 35,000 people staying in the island. And of those, almost 40%, that's a huge number, right? 40% of those are actually younger than 40 years old. And I think it, one, had also to do with receiving some boost from COVID-19.
Right, definitely.
Yeah, because I don't know if you remember, but I think everyone was sort of dying to just like get out.
Yeah, travel, look around.
I'm sure people were thinking, if I could just go somewhere, I would like to live here for a long time. But another thing is also with COVID-19, I think it provided room for people to become digital nomads and like often remote locations. So they started like looking for these funding programs that the city sort of, provides to raise awareness and boost their city economy, or just, pick up their camera and then start blogging.
Right. So the reason why, there's a particular reason why we actually chose to discuss this topic today, because this idea of 1 month living has become extremely popular nowadays. So Walter, I want to ask you, why didn't we see this travel or living trend during our parents' generation?
Well, I think the reason why it's become popular nowadays rather than our parents' generation is because there's a few different reasons. I mean, though in our parents' generation as well, we lived in a fast-moving society, especially here in Seoul. We are very tired of that fast-moving society, so we need to get away, we need to refresh. And we see this as like a mini holiday to get away from all the hustle and bustle of Seoul or wherever you may live. Doesn't matter which city you live in, as long as it's away from here. That's the reason why I think many people love to do these 1 month stays or 2 month stays or whatever it may be. But here's the thing, it doesn't mean that they stop working exactly. Some of these people do continue to work either in a part-time job at maybe like a convenience store or a cafe.
Picking fruits at farms.
Picking fruits at farms as well, which is great, especially if you go to Jeju though. So to answer your question why we don't see it in our parents' generation so much, previously it was just not commonplace. When a long time ago it was, here was the form, graduate, find someone, get married, and then continue just living the way it is. Now, there wasn't a lot of time to spare, and if you were to, and there's still a small stigma now, if you were to take more than 2 weeks off, or 3 weeks off, or 4 weeks off, you were kind of seen as like you're not committed to your job, you're a bit lazy. But perceptions are changing, and that's why we're seeing this trend move forward.
And to talk more specifically why our generation, millennials and Gen Zs, as Jessica mentioned in the stat, that 40% of those who tried 1 month living in Jeju Island were part of our generation. Why do you think 1 month living has become especially popular among our generation? Could you elaborate a bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. In addition to the background of how it all started, including the COVID-19, I also think social media actually played a pretty big part too. Because now that many of our generation can actually work remotely, a lot of people use these 1 month stays to create social media content and to share the different lifestyle that they enjoy. I think some are even doing it overseas, especially after COVID. I think a lot of people had that craving, so they consume these contents more. So there's a supply and demand on both sides as well.
Right, especially because our generation is often called the most tech-savvy generation. I think that like filming those vlogs and actually uploading them would be like a major reason why they're more into these type of traveling. And talking about from a more broader point of view, Walter, I even heard that millennials and Gen Zs from overseas are actually visiting Korea to try out these traveling methods or trends.
Yeah, I guess we can really contribute this to Hallyu, like the Korean wave as well, because there are a lot of K-drama fans who want to stay here in Korea and stay particularly in the areas of where some of their favorite K-dramas were shot at. And now, not only that, the local government is also hopping on this bandwagon and doing their best to try to attract those foreigners through the city, through various types of promotions or subsidies. It's a great way to attract tourism. I think, you know, the more we see these foreigners come to Korea, it's also not just Seoul, it's other places that they can go to. So I think this is really great for Korea.
I think that especially these regions, for example, near oceans or what we sometimes call the countryside is receiving more of these visitors is actually a very good thing because these areas often struggle with low population and also they're not as much as promoted to popular tourist destinations. So this could definitely give these regions a boost. And I found this very interesting. I don't know whether you guys find it interesting too, but our generation is really known for prioritizing and valuing efficiency. But actually 1 month living costs more and it requires more time when compared to short-term traveling. So why do you think that we're so dedicated to spending our money and time to experience 1 month living?
Yeah, that's also very interesting because that is definitely our trend. We like to be very efficient. But I think another thing is when it comes to, you kind of briefly mentioned it, but a lot of city councils are also sponsoring these kind of events. And my friend, she actually did a couple of weeks in Gyeongju, and then she did another couple of weeks in Dongyang because she received subsidy from these city councils. But aside from that, I have friends who come to Korea from like France, Denmark, and Netherlands to just live here for a few months, clearly knowing that the expense is greater than just, you know, hopping in and hopping out because you have to find the house, make sure that you get around, right? So let's take a look at the screen to see what the responses were from these people. Now, other than just general curiosity about a new culture, what I found really interesting was inspiration and motivation. So people actually wanted to be inspired by challenging themselves or even exposing themselves to these foreign, new and interesting places. And usually by living in a completely different culture, you find the challenges I get exciting.
Yeah, they're mind-opening too.
Right, yeah. And then recharge, also a big one. When you live in a city like Seoul or New York, you really want to get away and enjoy the beautiful urban, suburban, you know, kind of aesthetic, I suppose. And some young parents even go abroad for their children to do language exchange as well. So.
Right. So we talked about why 1 month living or this traveling trend has become big among millennials and Gen Zs and here in Korea. So we asked a very interesting question to our viewers, where in Korea they would choose to live for a month if they were given the opportunity. And here's what 3 of them had to say. So if we look at the comments, Toby says Jeju City, Jeju City, part of Jeju Island. I traveled extensively around Korea during the 7 years I lived there, but never to Jeju. I would love to spend a month there there and maybe learn some Jeju local dialect. Leon says, I would like to live in Busan since I've never traveled there. I'd visit the famous tourist destinations, try out the regional delicacies, and perhaps find some hidden gems. I would want to fully immerse myself and explore how residents spend their daily lives there. Kabi says, I would want to live in a more rural area or near a village and reside in a hanok, preferably up in a hill or a mountain. I want to wear hanbok, eat Korean food every day, and experience farming and making kimchi. So a lot of interesting comments from our viewers. Now, to find more about the reasons behind our generation's enthusiasm for 1 month living, as we've seen from our discussion and from the comments, we're going to invite an expert to join our discussion. We'll be right back, so stay tuned. We're back. So today we're joined by Bae So-young, who is a professor of hotel tourism and tourism management at Kyunghee University in Seoul. Welcome, Professor Bae, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Lovely to have you. So our first question for you is, Professor Bae, do you believe there is a specific reason why 1 month living has become a trend among millennials and Gen Zs?
Yes, this MZ generation is actually a me generation. So their focus is heavily centered on themselves. So they highly value personal experience, personal growth, pursuing well-being, and a balanced life. And they really want to enjoy this moment and now. So for their happiness, instead of saving time, money, and their resources for future, because it's just full of uncertainty. So the idea of spending a whole month in a totally new environment and immersing themselves in a particular local culture and gaining very diverse and deep experiences and engaging in self-reflection, it's very, very appealing and rewarding for them. And also in a society like South Korea, where extreme competition is prevalent from a very, very young age, such a break has felt like a luxury before, but things has changed it. So very similar to the Western concept of gap year. So this year, these days, like young Korean people are increasingly pausing intentionally their academic pursuit and professional pursuit to invest some time for a break and also for some personal realignment.
I would love your analogy about the gap year. I guess 1 month stay can be seen as like a life gap month or gap year for the MZers. Is there also some difference in what our generation values compared to the older generation when traveling? You mentioned some of the traits, but could you compare it with the older generation also?
Yes. So in South Korea, now like everybody travels, but the unrestricted overseas travel was only permitted about like 35 years ago. So the former generations, in fact, they had limited travel experiences compared to these days. And they used to be engaged in rather like conventional form of travel, like a large group tour. So visiting well-known landmarks and taking photo shots and sightseeings. But in the meantime, the national economy was much worse than it is now. So leisure was back then not actually valued at all. But like this generation, MZ has grown up in a more economically stable society where the quality of life is a priority for them. And they are actually experienced travelers. So they have enough experiences. So beyond traditional sightseeing, they seek for more deeper connections with local culture and gain more profound understanding of themselves during their local travel. And another thing to add is their sharing behavior. So when they think of travel, they want something shareable.
Yes.
And such content is a major travel information sources among this generation, as well as a major trigger for their travel decisions too.
Thank you for your answers. We're just about to run out of time, but quickly, what kind of travel trends do you expect to see among millennials and Gen Zers?
Well, I think they will be still like experience seekers. So this generation seems to continue their quest for unique and authentic experiences, not only embracing like long-term independent travel, such as like 1 month stay, but also willing to invest their money in their like hobby-based travel, interest-based travel. So if they are big fans of such concert or rare experiences, they will be willing to spend some money. And also, the travel trend of this generation are expected to evolve very, very closely with social media. So while this generation pursues like very, very unique experiences, but in the meantime, this generation also seeks experiences that have been tried, tested, and endorsed by their peers, as evidenced by numerous validation photos like 인증샷 and hashtags. So like engaging in these activities like fosters a sense of belonging and connection. And the act of this sharing self becomes a form of leisure and entertainment among this generation. So this trend is likely to persist as they place a high value on like being part of the in crowd and also experience enjoyment from this like social interaction and engagement.
Great. All right, Professor Bae. Well, thank you for your amazing insights today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we often like to end our episode with some tips and advice from our panelists here in the studio. So briefly, are there anything, tips or advice that you'd like to give for those who want to try out 1 month living?
Yeah, I will very quickly use my very own experience. I did a 3-month stay in Costa Rica to volunteer during college. And as Professor mentioned, I think if it's something unique and self-development, it can also help. So it's really awesome to just go in there and see what comes at you. But having like maybe a simple purpose, whether it be like a meditation retreat or volunteering or like working at a farm, I think having that will help you get settled in a foreign country rather quickly.
Right, so that you can get the most out of it.
Exactly, yeah.
What are your advice, Walter?
Well, just quickly, out of Seoul. Get out of Seoul, do something else.
go.
Go to Jeju, go to Busan, go to Gwangju, go anywhere else but Seoul. Seoul's great, but Korea's got more to offer than just Seoul.
That's true.
Right. So hope everyone who sees this episode can have a chance to step out of their comfort zone and enjoy a new type of traveling, for example, 1 month living. And we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Cheska Dainha
It's always mine. Thank you.
and Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
Lovely to have you guys. Thank you everyone for watching. See you tomorrow. We are News Generation.